Hello and welcome back to the channel where I'm joined by Connor McKenna again for what's the last hurling episode of the year. We've had the two finals yesterday to finish off the season. Limerick winning the Liam McCarthy Cup and Antrim winning the Joe McDonagh Cup. So we'll start off with what over the whole year has been an outstanding season for Limerick. They've won every game that they've played this year. So I don't think anybody can deny them what they've earned. And league champions, Munster champions, and All Ireland champions. And what did you make of them yesterday?
Well, Gerry, they're by far the best team in the country. That was the way before the game. I didn't get at all understand how people were saying they weren't going so well after the Waterford and Galway matches. To be honest with you, I could have saw that performance coming yesterday. I think I called Limerick to win by a few points, but I think it was very much as expected. I think Tadhg de Burkett, to be fair to Waterford, was a massive loss when he went off in the first half. He's one of their best players and one of the best defenders in the country. But look, Waterford, it wasn't to be. They missed a few goal chances in the first half. If they had gone in, then it might have been a different game. But I do think Limerick were always going to push on, and I think that this Limerick team is really, really here to stay, and I think that they could dominate in the same way as the Dublin footballers are at the moment, to be honest with you. I think that they're a really, really talented team. They're not an old team. I think Galway and Tipperary have excellent minor teams at the moment, under 21s, but I do think both those counties probably need a bit of a transition period maybe, so it might take them a year or two before they get onto the scene. And I think Limerick are really coming at a high base now. I think when Limerick won the All-Ireland in 2018, there wasn't really that one standout dominant team that they had to dethrone. So because of that, then they won the All-Ireland in the first year. I don't think the same can happen with Galway or with Tip. So look, I do think Limerick, just going back on the match yesterday, I think that there was a pity we didn't see that goal from Kyle Hayes and Keenan. It was a super double save from Stephen O'Keefe to deny that. But look, all around the park, Limerick played very well. I think Nicky Quaid in goal is a huge asset. He doesn't get near enough credit, and he'd actually be my hurler of the year, because I think every game he's had a great game. They haven't let in a goal in their last 3 games, and I just think that he's so solid as a goalkeeper. His Quaid, his puck outs are so good, and I just think all around the park, Limerick are far and away the best team, and I do think it'll be very, very hard to see them stopped in the near future, to be honest. Although I did say this year I thought there'd be a huge kick in Tipperary, and I think when Tipperary went out, I kind of thought Limerick were definitely going to win it then, and that's how events transpired. I think Waterford, after they drew Clare, the path was Clare and Kilkenny, I thought they had a good chance to get into the final. They bet Clare fairly well. The Kilkenny match could have been over at half time. I think the second half performance of the Kilkenny game probably gave Waterford an awful lot of hope. It might have given them a small bit of false hope, Gerry, to be honest with you. Do you know that kind of way? And although I do think Waterford were very unlucky that Galway didn't beat Limerick, because it looked as if Galway could have stole that game towards the end. And was it Cathal Mannion that went off, one of those Mannions, and Joe Canning got injured late on. So if those lads weren't available for the final, Waterford would have had a real chance of beating Galway. So they would have had, and it really, really, really would have been a great, but it would have been great for them. But no, I think the Munster finals, the champions of Munster never seemed to play well in the semi-final. And Limerick, when they got over that, the final was probably only going to be a box-ticking exercise, and that's how it transpired. And I think it was a credit to Limerick yesterday, Gerry. They didn't really... After at half time, the game was in the melting pot, and maybe the other games they didn't kill off the game like they should have done, but this week they did kill off the game, and they're deserving All-Ireland champions.
Okay, so just obviously you mentioned, that they have less opportunity to, maybe add a few more. Like in terms of, they've won 2 in 3 years, and what do you think they need to do? How far are they off, in comparison to some of the really, great teams that there's been over the years?
Well, that's a good question, actually, Gerry, to be honest. I think that they're probably, the only great team I can really think of compared to that, well, in my lifetime, was the Kilkenny hurling team from 2006 to 2015. I suppose maybe a wee bit more relevant example was the Cork hurlers in 2004, 2005. They won 2 All-Irelands, and Kilkenny had won the 2 before that. And Limerick are probably at the stage now, they're probably at the level now where Cork and Kilkenny were in 2006, where whoever won that game, either of those teams could have pushed on to be very, very strong. Cork were going for 3 in a row. Kilkenny were going for top 3 in a row. Kilkenny won the match. They ended up winning 4 in a row, and they ended up winning, 9 of the next 11 All-Irelands. They were an unbelievable team. And I think that's where Limerick need to go next. And I think I suppose in contrast to that, Cork, they had the strikes, didn't help them. They haven't won All Ireland since. Do you know, like I think Tipperary in 2010 had an opportunity. They should have done a lot more with that team. It was a good young team in 2010, and they didn't really do enough with that team. Do you know, they won All Ireland in 2016 and 2019 last year, but they probably should have won a small bit more. And when Galway won it in 2017, they really pushed on. But I think a good example of where this Limerick team are at, Gerry, is where the Dublin footballers were at maybe in 2013. It's a bit of a pathway. Dublin won the All Ireland in 2011 by a point. Limerick, that was their first in 16 years. Limerick won this All Ireland by a point. Won the All Ireland in 2018 by a point even. That was the first in 45 years. The next year, Dublin had a big hype on them. Limerick had a big hype. The two of them lost semi-finals. Dublin lost to Mayo. Limerick lost to Kilkenny. Do you know, the next year then Dublin came back and won the All Ireland against Mayo. Now, in Limerick this year won against Galway. And in 2014, then that's a 3-year cycle. Just say Dublin had good underage teams, but just to go back on that, just to 2014, then Dublin played flamboyant football all the way through. Donegal absolutely stunned them, so they did. But Dublin learned from that, and they haven't lost a championship game since. And I think this is where Limerick now, they hopefully for their own sake, they're going to avoid that Donegal shining doors moment that Dublin did have that year. But I do think at the moment, Gerry, this Limerick team are miles ahead of most counties. I still think the 3 counties in Ireland at the moment are Limerick, Galway, and Tip. I think those 3 teams could push on with the underage and everything. I think Kilkenny and Cork probably in bracket, and Waterford as well, because Waterford, to be fair, have got to the Ireland final in Merit this year and made a lot of strides. But look, it's hard to know. But I do think Limerick, their next chat, that's why it was very important for them to live in the present and to win yesterday. They've done that. And I suppose another thing that Limerick and Dublin is comparison, and they won't want to hear this now, it doesn't take away at all, but there's a lot of talk about the money and the advantage Limerick have got now. I suppose there hasn't been no official, maybe it hasn't been in development grants or anything like that, but it might have been, it's obviously through private, maybe investors within the county or whatever. Do you know what I mean? But that's there as well. But look, that's for a different day. And it's not to take away from Limerick at all, because a lot of counties are in that situation. But I think this Limerick team is absolutely excellent, and I think they deserve full credit for what they've done. I think they're a county, and I suppose if we're going to mention the money, Gerry, we have to also mention what they've done right themselves. They've put the structures in place absolutely big time since 2010, and they've changed their underage structure. Then they've got huge participation in, and the results are showing now. They have a manager. He was determined to get involved in managing teams. He's done that to great effect. I think he saw Limerick play Tipper in 2009 semi-final. They got bet by about 22, 23 points. Tipperary blew them off the park. And I think John Kiley rang the county board chairman the next morning and said he wants to get involved managing a team at any level. And he took various teams in the county underage, and I think intermediate, maybe the B team in the county. But he's come now to the stage where he's got the senior chance in 2017. And in his 4 years there, they've won 2 Munster titles, 2 National Leagues, a Division 1 B League, I think, and 2 All-Irelands is the bottom line. But I put it this way, Gerry, they've won 2 All-Irelands. They didn't win an All-Ireland for 45 years, and we won't be sitting here in 2065 saying that Limerick didn't win another All-Ireland since 2020. It won't be 45 years before they win another one. And I think that they really, really dominate in the near future is my own prediction.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Obviously, you make the point about the money situation as well, and as I understand it, the McManus, it's like the McManus family has put a lot of money into them. But again, to be brutally honest, as I say, I know we got carried away, or I got carried away the last time we were talking about Dublin and the money, and to be honest, I don't really have a problem with something like that, where somebody that wants to see their county do well invests in them. I'm all for that. It's just for me, it's the imbalance of money that's coming, from the organisation that's supposed to be running the thing. And obviously, as I says, Dublin's a big county, it's got a big population, and I've got no issues with that. It is just, for me, it's purely the money that's coming directly from the GAA is the issue. I think on the legacy thing and how good this Limerick team is, for me, I think there's kind of 2 ways. There's you could look at it and say, right, this Limerick team this season, just purely looking at this season, they've won everything. They've won everything. So there's absolutely no reason why they wouldn't be. 2020 Limerick team would be considered as one of the best all time, and then you can have the debate then. And then there's the continuity of it, teams like Kilkenny obviously won their 4 in a row, and teams that win a number over a period of time. So obviously that is something that we'll wait and see. Limerick of 2 and 3 years, and we'll see if they add to that over the next couple of years. But from this season purely, to win every game is obviously a fantastic achievement. But like, how would you say hurling in 2020 compares to different eras? Like, would you say the standard that Limerick are at now and the teams that Limerick have been playing this year are as good as what like Kilkenny were beating, for instance, whenever they won their 4-0?
Well, I'm going to answer that with one point. I think the standard now is absolutely years ahead than what it was years ago. I think the training and conditioning, everything, skills. Like, I just say a good example, Gerry. In 2004, the All Ireland final, there was no goal in it. It was 17 points to 9. Yesterday, there was no goal in the game. It was 30 points to 19. So, like, it just this scoring, it's become a much more physical, skillful game. Not physical, but much more skillful game, conditioning. But maybe back then there was big, huge hits. But I think the standard and the skill levels are miles ahead now. But in terms of that, like that Kilkenny team was still absolutely fantastic. It was, and I think it's probably it's very hard to answer that question, Gerry. To be honest with you, because like, if you look then, there's probably 9 teams now capable of competing at the top. Like, was there 9 teams back then? Maybe Dublin mightn't have been as strong for the first few years, and Wexford might have been as strong in some years, but like there probably was roughly around the same. Antrim might have been a bit stronger, So like, but like I say, in terms of very top teams that Kilkenny from 06 to 2015, who they would have played, they would have had Cork in 06 starting off, that good team. They would have had Waterford, were a good team, very good team back then. They would have had who else would have had? Tipperary, were they stopped the fight, or they were an excellent team. And Galway were an excellent team. And Clare won an All-Ireland in the meantime. So there's probably a lot of good teams, but it's probably more or less the same then as it was now. I don't think it's too much of a difference, to be honest. But I do think Limerick are kind of similar to Kilkenny, though. Kilkenny used to go and win those leagues and win Leinster Championships and win everything, I think that Limerick are kind of a bit similar to that. But I do think John Kiley deserves great credit. But I suppose one more thing is it's an exceptional bunch of Limerick players, really, at the end of the day as well. Like, it's not like that. These are like, it's not like they're a small county punching away above their weight. Like, that kind of, it's still a brilliant group of players. And I suppose I always say, when you have a brilliant group of players, it's a manager's job not to demotivate them, which is much, much easier said than done. And Kiley is doing that to great effect. He's probably doing similar to what Jim Gavin did with Dublin, and what Desi Farrell is doing with Dublin at the moment, where you're facilitating a great group of players, but that takes nothing away from the manager. He's doing a super job. Is John Kiley, and to be honest, I can see Limerick. I can see Limerick winning the next year. And to be honest, if only for, I won't say a freak result, but the Kilkenny match last year, there was no way Limerick were expected to win that game. And only apart from that game, we could be this. I do think this should be 3 in a row. Now, Tipperary were deserving All-Ireland champions last year, but Limerick have beaten them by 12 points in the Munster final, and there's no way Limerick should have lost to Kilkenny. Would they have beaten Tip in the final? We'll never know. They didn't beat them. Tip won the All-Ireland fair and square, but I do think that Limerick, they probably feel it at last year's behind them, and maybe similar to that Donegal-Dublin game, I don't think they'll let it happen again.
Okay, just before we finish up in that game, just from like watching the 2 games yesterday, the level of skill of the Limerick players, like I think it was like the best summarised in the one you were talking about earlier, the double save, where like there was like a point in the match where like I think it probably, like, I'm not going to have any negativity around Antrim at all. I don't want to be doing that because I'm delighted with what happened yesterday. But anytime the ball kind of hit the deck in that game, you were, next thing there's a scrum. Everybody was sort of struggling to get the ball up off the surface, and there was a point in that match where like it was quite early in the game, and I was kind of still, the Antrim game in my head, and the ball went on the ground, and I was waiting for the scrum and the run up to that, and the guy just played a wee perfect flick in the, his teammates' hands, and they went on and they had that, like, credit to the Waterford goalkeeper. It was a great save, but just the level, the quickness. I think there's also, from like in comparison to like games from years ago, it feels like there's not necessarily a place on the pitch you could give a free away and not be at danger of the team scoring. Like, like the power that the players are generating from hitting shots from miles and miles and miles out. Like, it's unbelievable to watch it. Like, and as you say, like, I was watching it from obviously as an Antrim fan, thinking, this is the sort of teams that we're going to be up against next season, and thinking, Jesus, what are we in for? But it was a fantastic display from Limerick. Not particularly an exciting game because they were so good, and to me, sometimes great teams need great opponents, But at the end of the day, Limerick have just beat whatever's been in front of them this season, and maybe only Galway give them a wee scare. And whenever they give them the scare, they took it to another level again and moved away. So, like, to me, Limerick, All Ireland champions, Munster champions, league champions. What a year! It's been a fantastic year for them, and to me the right team was crowned as the 2020 All Ireland champions.
I think Waterford this year, Liam Cahill has done a brilliant job, and he's a brilliant manager as Liam Cahill. There's a bit of pride back, a bit of commitment back in the year. And I do think Duberca was a big loss yesterday, but I think Waterford very much took every game as it comes this year, and they kind of saw even the Munster final. They thought they had a great chance of winning the game, and they nearly pulled off a shot. But I think they bet Cork. They saw they had an option to beat Cork. They bet them, and well, they were favourites against Clare, but they won that game. And against Kilkenny, they kind of saw they had a chance to beat Kilkenny and went out and beat Kilkenny. Do you know that kind of way, Gerry? Do you know what I mean? Like, but I do think yesterday it was probably men against boys in a lot of areas. I do think that Limerick were miles ahead of them on the day, to be honest. Now, I think Duberca, as I said, was a big loss. But just going back, I do think if Kilkenny had beaten Waterford, would Limerick have rather played Kilkenny? Probably not, because Kilkenny had beaten them last year in the All Ireland final. But I don't know. I think that they probably would have rather preferred to play. Well, I think when they saw Waterford, Gerry, they thought they had a great chance to win the game, to be honest with you. That's not to say they disrespected them or took them for granted, but I do think that they would have really expected to win that game yesterday, and I do think that they would have rather have played Waterford than maybe played Tipperary in a final again, because Tip, they all might just up to Limerick. I just think Limerick were confident yesterday ahead of the game, and I think that they kind of didn't really. I think very much Limerick yesterday very much played their own game, and they played the game on their terms. They didn't really seem to be too bogged down in what the opposition were doing, to be honest, that kind of way. And I think that stood to them an awful lot. And I think Waterford, I think they'll be disappointed on the day. They were plucky underdogs getting to an All Ireland final, really, is what they were. Like, it happens a lot in sports when not a smaller team, but maybe not as expected team gets to an All Ireland final or gets to a cup final, and sometimes they do themselves huge justice, like real plucky underdog, and try and win the game even at some levels. But sometimes things don't really go right for them in the big days in the final, and I think yesterday was one of those days for Waterford. And look, the first half they were competitive, the second half Limerick pulled away. But I do think Limerick, as I said earlier, I don't think there's one player on the team you could say is we, and like you can just see them growing and developing their bench. I think we're seeing the start of something of dominance. I think that the fact they got over the line in 2018 means there's not that level of pressure on them, And when there's not that level of pressure on Limerick, then it was a bit like, as I said, it was very, very like Dublin in 2011, where the Dubs got over the line against Kerry, so there was no pressure after that for them. They had won their All Ireland, so there wasn't these doubts about whether they were good enough. While if you look at Cork hurlers, they just can't get over the line at all, and they couldn't get in 2017, Waterford bet them in semi-final stage. They got a man sent off, and then in 2018, Limerick just edged past them. Nicky Quaid made an unbelievable save. The Cork had that game won in normal time. Like, they won't know how they didn't win that game, but Cork kind of have gone maybe 2 steps back since then. Since those years. And look, Limerick, they've just kind of gone in the opposite direction. But look, yesterday belonged to Limerick, and long may they enjoy it. And I suppose, just before we get on to Antrim, Gerry, Westmeath Miners had a great win against Dublin. It was one of the hurling results of the year. It was one of those eye-catching wins, and it's a great result for Westmeath. It wasn't expected at all, shall we say. That wasn't really seen as a Westmeath Minor team who had maybe huge potential. I think Derry absolutely hammered them last year in the Celtic Challenge under 16, but they got a lot of football as Juliet, and they've really, Noel Connacht's done a great job. So before we move on to the Antrim game, well done to the Westmeath Miners. And they're playing off the Leinster semi-final, and I wonder have they a good chance to get into a Leinster minor final, which would be a real historic achievement for Westmeath hurling.
Well, obviously, congratulations to the Westmeath lads. Beating Dublin, certainly the way Offaly's been going, at senior level, they would need to be putting, some effort in the minor level, and but the way it's been going the last couple of years, you would say certainly that Offaly aren't a team that you would particularly think that you couldn't be beating. So I presume Kilkenny will be somewhere on the other side of the draw, will they?
Yeah, I think Kilkenny and I'm not sure who the other team is, but I know Westmeath are playing Offaly anyway, and I'm not sure. I think Kilkenny are definitely in it anyway, but Dublin have done very well at underage level in recent years, so it was a big shock for Westmeath to win, and it's great for hurling in the camp, because it was underage was probably not as strong as it had been other years. But to be fair to Westmeath underage, like the hurling is not a sport that normally produces bigger shocks with the smaller counties beating the. But Westmeath minors bet Wexford in 2015 to beat Kilkenny under 21 in 2016, and now they're after beating Dublin this year. So that's 3 massive results for Westmeath hurling, and I suppose it's great because it means that those lads do step up to senior level, they're not really fearing these teams as much. They're not really fearing a Dublin jersey coming down to Mullingar, or a Kilkenny jersey, or a Tipperary, or not Tipperary, but a Wexford jersey, that kind of way, like which is exactly what you want now. Look, if you look at every year, I suppose the challenge for counties like Westmeath is to have that type of team every year. But Carlow have Westmeath beaten in the first round of the Leinster Minor this year, and Westmeath kind of stole that game against Carlow, and they got shoot against Dublin. They weren't seen as having any chance, but they're after upsetting the apple cart, and it would be great if they could get to a Leinster final. Now, I believe the Offa team is very, very strong, so they probably will be outsiders again. But it's not impossible. Even for Offaly to get to a Leinster minor final or Westmeath, would be a big boost for your count.
Well, certainly, as far as I'm concerned, my thoughts are if there's, the more hurling teams competing at the higher level, the better for the game. So fingers crossed. The players progress and get better moving forward. So, we'll go then to the warm up at Croke Park yesterday. For my point of view, it was a nervy afternoon. Antrim did get over the line in the end, 22 points to 117 against Kerry in the Joe McDonagh Cup final. It wasn't a game for the purists, I would suggest, but certainly, being involved and having a dog in the race, it felt very, very exciting. For my perspective, it felt like a closer game than the senior final. But so Antrim up into the Liam McCarthy next year. So did you catch the game yourself?
Yeah, I watched all of it. I wasn't overly impressed with the game on the day, to be honest. I didn't think the game was a fantastic game. I think it was probably one of Antrim's weaker performances of the competition. To be honest with you, I think that Dunloe Cusick is getting a lot of stick for saying that Antrim straight away that it wasn't that they'll need to step up an awful lot or they'll be hammered next year. I probably would agree with. Well, I do think if they play like they played yesterday, they will struggle at Liam McCarthy, really and truly. But that's for another day, really. And the reality is, Antrim, other years they would have played brilliant hurling and lost by a point in the Thriller. And this year they kind of got over the line. And I think that's the main thing that matters, Gerry, is that like the fact you have to be in it to have a chance. And the fact they're up there next year in the Liam McCarthy is exactly what they want. Look, we're not going to be deluded. Are Antrim going to win a Leinster championship next year or get to a Leinster final? Probably not. That kind of way. But the challenge is, I suppose, next year get a home game and hope there's a few supporters into the games when they're back. If the vaccine works, the rollout, and get them. Bring someone like Dublin and Wexford or one of those teams up to Laois, Dublin, Wexford, one of those three. Bring them up to Ballycastle or Dunloy or to Lougheed or to somewhere like that, or even Corrigan Park, and make it uncomfortable for them, and you might have a chance of causing an upset. I think Antrim on their day, if it wouldn't be a major shock if they were to win a match in that Leinster Championship. I think the target for Antrim is this year was a bit like Westmeath hurlers had a very similar target this year. They were drawn in a league with Galway, Waterford, Cork, Limerick, and Tipperary, and the target was to beat Carlow in the relegation playoff, because realistically, the other matches didn't really matter, and they did beat Carlow in the playoff, and that has to be Antrim's target next year in the league and championship. In the championship, it has to be very much to beat Laois, with no respect to either team, because the two of those teams are probably going to be the two bottom teams, and one of them going down, barring a very, very big surprise. So Antrim should be focusing everything next year on beating Laois in that game. It would be better to beat Laois and to get hammered in every other game than to have 5 games where you come within a few points but get relegated. I think 2 years ago in the league, Antrim played Galway and played Dublin and lost to the two of them by a point. But they played Laois in the relegation playoff. I think it was Laois, and they lost, so they were relegated anyway. So it made no difference. They may as well have not. They would have been better off losing but losing all the other games a lot stronger. Like, I think the target for Antrim has to be at all costs to stay in the league and stay in the championship next year, and that would be very, very tough with Gerry, to be honest with you. Like, I think in the league they'd have a realistic chance of beating Laois and Westmeath. So they've 2 chances maybe in the league that they're going to have. Championship, they're probably only going to have 1 realistic chance that they're going to probably have to beat Laois in that game, and Laois should be thinking the same, that we have to be Antrim, that kind of way. And that game is both counted to Ireland final. But just going back on yesterday's match, not to be getting away from the point, I think Antrim, Neil McManus came off the bench. He was injured. I think it showed you that he came on and had a huge influence on proceedings, and he's a great hurler. Like, that's why I think Antrim, the fact that I won't say they won a Joe McDonagh without Neil McManus, because that's not strictly true, because he did play for a half in the final, and if he didn't play, Kerry may well have won the match. But the fact that they got so close to winning it without McManus, if he comes into the team, he's worth under 10 points a match. And I think there's an awful lot to be optimistic from an Antrim point of view. I do agree with Donal Lowe that they will have to improve an awful lot from yesterday. They will. Like yesterday, but then again, Gerry, yesterday for Antrim hurling was all about winning. Yesterday wasn't about winning that game by a cricket score. And I think Kerry, I have to say, I'm going to give Kerry a bit of credit. They weren't great yesterday, but I think they've developed a level of consistency, and they've developed good underage structure within the county. So I think next year they should definitely win a Joe McDonagh Cup. And well, Westmeath, Carlow, it'll be hard, but I think next year in the league and championship, I put them at starting as favourites to win both. I think particularly the league, Kerry have to win that and try and win a Joe McDonagh Cup. I think it's probably more important for Kerry to win the league, because if they win the Joe McDonagh, they have to play a Munster team to play a playoff. It's a bit of a disgrace. That's why this year was probably the one opportunity for them. But I think Kerry immediately now, Fintan O'Connor, whenever the league starts, they have to win that league and get up to the top of that level of the league. You know, that's my own opinion. But yeah, going back and answering, Kieran Clark did well in the freeze yesterday. Two good lads around the pitch, Antrim do playing, and they've improved an awful lot as a team. Darren Gleeson has done a super job, and I don't like to say this, but I think Darren Gleeson could easily be the next Tipperary manager if and when Liam Sheedy does decide to depart his role, or him or Liam Cahill's another one. Tipperary seems to have a lot of tip managers are in very high stock at the moment, but Gleeson, I think he's committed to Antrim for another year at the moment. And yeah, I just saw his celebration at the end. I think it was Dohal Nugent is his name, the Antrim fellow with him. I think it for those lads, because they've both have publicly had struggles in the past with different issues, and it was great to see the two of them get to celebrate that moment together. It was kind of a real, we've overcome this and we're better for it, kind of, you know. So I was delighted for Gleeson. I think he's done a great job with Antrim, and I was never happier to see a county win a trophy in Croke Park. And I have to say, I think it was bad that we didn't get to see the Antrim captain's speech after the match, to be honest. I do understand that we have time, that there is time for these things, fair enough that there are time constraints, but I think there was enough time between the matches that they could have showed a speech for 3 minutes, to be honest with you. I think you wouldn't have had to see every player go up and lift the cup separately, but I think there was enough time to do a 2 or 3 minute speech, to be honest with you.
It is something that, you know, I've seen people talking about the fact that they didn't let Conor McCann's speech be covered. But again, you know, as I pointed out when I was talking to some people on Facebook about it, it hasn't really been. It's not really a surprise to me, because the Sunday game has basically, you know, it's been very much. It is a second tier competition, and the Sunday game have really treated it as such, to be honest, the whole way through. You know, there's been very few highlights, maybe just, you know, saying what the results are. So whenever they went to the break, I wasn't surprised, but it was disrespectful. And, you know, at the end of the day, like, them players all, you know, they're all in, you know, through clubs, through schools, through getting into the county team. The coaches have put it in, and, you know, like, that's, you know, a couple of minutes that, you know, they remember for the rest of their lives. And, you know, it should have been shown nationally, and it wasn't, and it's disappointing. But on the game itself, as you said, about Neil coming on, I thought it was. I literally, as he was, like, just before he come on, I actually put on Twitter, you know, about that we were struggling. Like, Kieran Clark was, you know, the shorter frees and stuff, he was fantastic. But from the 65s and stuff, he wasn't hitting them. And I think James McNaughton had a go at one as well just before Neil come on, and he wasn't hitting it either. So then Neil come on, and I think he hit 3 frees from, like, around there, 3 frees or 65s. And then he also had that point, you know, from right out in the sideline. And, you know, he got 4 points in a little bit of time, and we won the game by 2 points. And Kieran Clark, obviously, you know, you have to give him credit. He put up a big score, and he's been putting up big scores all season. I think before that game he hit 436, and I think he got 12. So, like, you're looking at 4 and close to 50 points in, like, 5 games, which, you know, is a great return at any level. I thought I mentioned McNaughton from Lockgate. I thought he was really good. He didn't score an awful lot, but he just seemed to be right in the middle of everything. And I thought at the back, Matthew Dunley, who I think is from Ballycastle, and he was at fault for Kerry's goal. But other than that, I thought he had a very good game. But there's no doubt about it. I know myself, and like everybody in Antrim, there was a lot of coverage, a lot of good coverage. I don't know whether you've seen the up for the final thing on YouTube and on YouTube. Did you see any of it?
Yeah.
You did, yeah. I thought like it was good, and it was good crack, and there was a lot of support. Even my kids at school, like they were doing they done a wee video. It was actually shown on that. It was like come on, Antrim up the Saffs or something, like they showed it, and like they were there, and it did. The county got behind the team, and it was good to see. It was good to see it happening, but he did, like, as much as we don't like to hear it. Donald Logie, he's 100% right. Antrim, based on yesterday, and based on the level of where we've been over the last couple of years, we have to be on an upward curve. You know what I mean? If we're not on the upward curve and we go into the Liam McCarthy and we go into Division 1 and just level off at where we're at, we're only going to be playing Joe McDonagh in Division 2 hurling again. It's the only way it's going to go. So 100% the target is to be in 2022, to be still in Division 1 and still in the Liam McCarthy Cup. And the Galefest project, I know there's been a lot of there's a lot put in, and they were talking about it on the TV. I can't remember who it was. It was I think it was one of the guys from the '89 team. Was talking about it's all very well putting money in and that there, but the money needs to be going to developing coaches and get as many coaches in as you can, as high level of coaches, get them as high quality, and get them coaching the kids and get them into the schools and improve the county. Like, Antrim's massive. It's a massive county. There's like 600,000 people now, albeit not all of them are interested in GAA as such, but it's the second biggest county in Ireland, and there's no reason why whenever you balance out and you take like things, obviously Antrim's there's a lot of people that maybe aren't interested, but whenever you take it down to the people that are in the GAA members and clubs that there are in Antrim, there's no reason why we shouldn't be, competing at a decent level. So it was great to see the success. It was great to see an Antrim team lift the trophy at Croke Park, but I would like to see there to be more chapters to this book. I hope that it doesn't end here. And as you say, Gleason's come in and done a great job, and I think no matter I would definitely, I know he's to be there for next year. Depending on how that goes, at the end of the day, if that doesn't go well, he's probably not gonna, he's not gonna put his eggs in again. I think he kept saying it was a 3-hour-45 drive or a 4-hour-40, whatever it was. Anyway, kept saying that there in the thing on Friday night, and he's putting in a big commitment there. And if he's not being backed, why would you be bothered? At the end of the day, as long as it's going well, we'll have that, and hopefully we'll start developing. I know there's some good people, on behind the scenes, and people that have had success, at club level and stuff in Antrim, as part of his team. So let's just keep moving forward and hopefully produce players, and the coaches can get the best out of them.
Yeah, and I think, Gerry, just that even if worse comes to worse, next year for Antrim, they do get relegated, because if you face the facts, like in the league, they'd probably be favourites. They'd probably be favourites to beat Westmeath, probably if that in the last match. They'd probably will stay up in the league, but the championship it'll be hard now to beat Laois. Laois have had the upper hand over Antrim in recent years for definite. But I think even if they do get relegated next year, there has to be structures in place that they're in a prime to come straight back up. That kind of relegation, if it does transpire, can't be the end of the whole thing, and then you go down crap and you're back to square one where you were years ago. That'd be the worst thing that would happen to Antrim. They have to be, like this year, they showed themselves to be a long way ahead of the Meads and those teams, like maybe just say like the Mead and Kildare and Down and those teams. Like they they have to make sure they stay at that level. And this year they bet Westmeath, they bet Kerry and a few times, and they bet that they drew with Carlow, but they played them once. But what the thing is, if Antrim do come down, they have to still be better than Kerry and those teams. They have to be the team. Like if you think about next year, if they come down and whoever comes up, that's one team gone. So Antrim will be favourites to win it again. They have to make sure that they don't that they're sustainable now, and they push on. I think also it's great to see Gleeson has done that now this year with that, but under 20 and minor, you'd nearly love to start seeing the same for Antrim where they have lads coming into. But look, is it a county with a lot of politics in the GAA? I don't know. I'd say maybe it is. You know that kind of. That's why it's no harm having maybe an outside voice who's got everything united. And I think that's good.
It always was like it. Definitely always was like there's always been issues. There used to always be the sort of there was like a city and a country divide in Antrim, and then like in more recent years there's been sort of like I don't know how true it is, but like you hear talk about whenever somebody from a club gets the Antrim job, there's a few clubs around them that aren't as willing to provide their players, and a few of the players just aren't interested. So it's kind of stories that that have been going on for years and years up here, and they even said, I heard them saying yesterday in the commentary that they says that this is like the first time in a lot of years that Antrim have got all their best players out. They've got them all committed, and long may it continue. There's always been issues with that, but success will maybe make the three boys be want to be a part of it. So we'll see how it goes from here.
And if you even saw Antrim in the football, like for years, they weren't like. If you look at probably the best manager they've had in recent years, has been Liam Bradley, who's an outsider from Derry, did a great job. Like, and I think he kind of said, and he made a good point, and there was definitely 15 good players in Antrim, and you know what, he was 100% right. Like there are 15 good players in a big country with a lot of clubs and a lot of interest. It's just that maybe for some reasons we don't see all 15 lads. And Harbinson has done a good job. Hopefully, and McGinley now will see the same where they feel 15, the best lads coming out. And it shouldn't be politics. Politics should be left out of that. But look, it does happen. I'm sure it happened to every county. But some counties will. I think Antrim. See, the problem with saying Antrim should always go outside in the hurling is maybe it's a great idea in theory, but a lot of the stronger hurling counties going to North Antrim is not practical for a drive on a wet Tuesday evening in winter, like so. And also, fellas are going to need expenses to come up as well. So, there's kind of an awful lot of issue. I think that the challenge for Antrim now has to be to find good managers every year. Do you know, there has to be good. But there's no point bringing someone in up who's only interested in a few handy bob and who's not going to be that interested. You're going to do it for a year or two and disappear. They want to be fair to Darren Gleeson, he's done a great job. I think he's very interesting. He's exactly what you need, someone like that, a fresh voice, that kind of way. But yeah, no, I think Antrim hurling's in a very good place, and I'd hate to think that if it did go down, like you even see Carroll this year, they went down, they got relegated in the Liam McCarthy last year, and they weren't really set to come back up. That kind of way. They didn't really, and I think the same thing can't happen to Antrim really. That kind of like Laois got it, and Laois, I won't say they were lucky, but they stayed up by default this year because they changed the format of the competition. That kind of way. But Laois are probably in a position now where they have pushed on to the next level, and there's no reason Antrim can't do. I think if, as I keep saying, are there 15 hurlers in Antrim, good hurlers? Yes, there absolutely are. And Antrim are, but they're even next year in the Joe McDonagh, Gerry. They could play someone like Wexford at home in the first match and maybe even win the match or come very, very close. And then they could play Laois to that and get a hammer to get well beaten and get relegated. That kind of way. But I suppose I always say that Michael O'Neill, when he was over the north, a good example of that. He got them to a level where they were consistent and able to beat most of the teams they expected to be. And I think Antrim have to start getting to that level now, where you're winning the matches you're expected to win, and you're getting results. You're challenging to win the rest of them. I think that's the target has to be for Antrim at the moment. But look, sure, I suppose that's for another day, and well done to Antrim and the winning the Joe McDonagh Cup.
That's the end of the hurling season. It'll probably not be too long. It's looking like we're in the new year and the new fixture list and the split season. That looks like the county stuff's going to be coming first from what I'm seeing. So it'll probably not be too long until the season starts again. I think they're talking about February for the start of the leagues and stuff. So we'll see how that goes. But my thanks to Conor, who's been here with me throughout the whole hurling season. Hopefully we've got a bit of football to wrap up before we finish this season off. So we'll be back later this week to talk about Dublin and Mayo. Congratulations, obviously, to everybody that's won the All Ireland this year. There was Limerick, Antrim, Kildare, Louth, and Donegal. won the five tiers in the hurling. So congratulations to them, and thanks to everybody that's watched the videos and liked the videos and shared the videos, etc. So thanks to everyone, and especially, as I say, Connor, for giving us bringing the knowledge to the shows. So thanks everyone, and hopefully we'll catch up again soon.